Hi, Jonathan York, by Financial Partners, looking at investment markets. It's going to be pretty interesting to see how the next sort of couple of months plays out. Trump has sort of launched the first sort of warning shot, if you like, in the potential sort of trade war, issued tariffs on solar and washing machines from some Asian countries. And it's just going to be very interesting to see, say, how this sort of plays out, whether there's going to be any retaliation. I suspect there probably will be, but it's just been a question to say the magnitude of it and how sort of severe it gets, and whether it is going to be sort of a tit for tat, and then we get into a big sort of trade war, which potentially could be a little bit damaging for the global economy. As well, obviously, there was a little bit of nervousness as there was a temporary sort of shutdown in the US government. This sort of proved very sort of temporary, sort of couple of days, and then they managed to get a short-term spending bill passed. But again, it's just sort of kicking the can down the road. They need to come up with some, sort of some definitive sort of action and really get the government back on a sort of firmer footing. But despite all this, the markets sort of hold up pretty well. I say earnings have been pretty good. You've still got a very robust economy in the US, and it's just going to be interesting to say really the sort of impact of this potential sort of trade war over the next sort of 3 to 6 months. Global equity markets at the present though, sort of steady as you go, sort of pushing on at a reasonable rate, sort of, reaching sort of fresh highs, easing back a little bit, and then sort of pushing on again. I suppose the worrying thing at the moment could be that potentially there is very little potential for sort of bad news out there, and that makes some of the analysts and economists very nervous when everyone's sort of looking the same way. Having said that, if you're not in the market and you're waiting for a pullback, it's pretty tough because, any sort of pullback is pretty shallow, and then, within sort of 3 or 4 days, it's another maybe 60, 70, 100 points higher. Oil's still holding up pretty well, sort of hovering around that sort of 65 on WTI, around sort of 68 to 70 range on Brent. Again, with the extremely cold winter in the northern hemisphere, it's going to be interesting to whether you see any little bit of pressure coming through on that sort of prices. Certainly, at the moment, the supply hasn't really sort of come on stream to sort of force prices down. Waiting for the ECB meeting this week to see if there's going to be any sort of revision and on the guidance for growth. A couple of weeks ago there was a lot of talk there may be, but now that sort of seems to be waning a little bit, and we expect that maybe to come sort of in maybe February or March of this year. Brexit still seems to be sort of dragging its heels a little bit, as discussed here many times. We really need some sort of concrete plans on the table by sort of August, September time. So that can go through the various sort of parliaments, obviously the ECB Parliament and also the UK Parliament, get sort of ratified and agreed before we get an agreement, sort of firm agreement in March 2019. And obviously if there is no agreement, potentially we go into what's called sort of a hard Brexit, and that potentially could be very damaging for the UK economy. Interesting as well, obviously, some of the cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin, under quite a bit of pressure out there, and sort of various governments start to take a much sort of closer look at this, and with some of the Asian countries looking to sort of ban it and place some pretty tough restrictions on it, there's been obviously quite a bit of increased volatility out there. New Zealand's still pushing along at pretty good rates. If you are looking for income out there, obviously bonds and TDs are a little bit on the low side. Plenty of options available. If you're interested in discussing what sort of options are out there, say call us on 0800 867 323 or go to the website www.bayfinancialpartners.co.nz for lots of interesting articles, and we look forward to speaking to you soon.